The Rigasa train station in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State. The train station is devoid of the usual hustle and bustle following the suspension of services and aftermath on Monday's night's attack by bandits. The station is virtually empty, save for few workers and security officials on duty. With train services halted, many commuters return to road transportation, a previously dreaded alternative, also because of the insecurity along the Kaduna-Abuja highway.
I'm not scared following the road because even you at home, you are not safe. You tell me that you too are safe, you are not safe. Hope you are getting me. You are not safe because everywhere now they are touching, everywhere.
At the popular Command Junction Motor Park, passengers are seen either arriving or departing from the park. The volume of commercial vehicles that load at this park since Tuesday has also increased from 30 to 45 daily, according to the park officials.
Just imagine plenty of port road. If you go to Olafan to here to Gatari, you will see different port road and different location of diversion, which is not right. Because in place of that diversion, if you match a break, you can see bandit can come out and do everything. And the security, we need more security in that road.
With the threats now associated with road and rail travel to and fro Kaduna, transport operators highlight some of the factors responsible for the heightened insecurity.
The rail is left for bandits, the road for bandits. Even here is not secured because we saw it on video. Kaduna airport was attacked by banditry. Why is it like that, for God's sake? And this thing is almost is in Kaduna, all these things are happening. Please, we are asking the government to do something about it because it's getting out of hand.
In the past 4 years, Kaduna, just like many other states in the northwest zone, has witnessed several deadly attacks by bandits in communities along major highways and critical public institutions. It's hoped that the latest train attack will be a turning point for the total overhaul of the nation's security architecture, an increase in the deployment of security operatives along the highways.
The day after that infamous attack on the Abuja-Kaduna train, it's still a developing story, I should say. There's efforts to rescue those unaccounted for, to even get the right figures, as it were. Yes, the manifest was released, but there had been reports earlier of a certain number of passengers, over 900, but the manifest says otherwise. So there's that one as well. There's the activities in the hospital trying to care for the victims of that attack who have been hurt, some trying to get surgery and all of that. So it's a big one, as I said, a developing story. And this morning, yes, we'll be having the head of the NRC join us. But for now, let's begin the conversation with a member of the House of Reps Committee on Defense, Honorable Yunusa Abubakar, who joins us via Zoom this morning. Honorable, thank you for joining us on the program. We also expect to have Mr. Giuliabe, a retired Commissioner of Police, Kaduna State, and Pioneer Commandant, Mobile Police Training College, Ilarogun, Osun State. But let's start off with you, Honorable. And the question I'll ask is, I know there's been a lot of conversation in the House of Representatives. We'll get to that. The Deputy Speaker, who was not happy that the service chiefs did not honor the invitation to, tell the House and by extension Nigerians what exactly is going on. But let me begin by asking, this is a problem, a challenge we've had for since 2011 or thereabouts. And during the course of your oversight, I'd like to know what has been the gap between the knowledge we have, the seeming intelligence we have, and implementation and getting this out of the way. What has been the challenge?
Well, good morning, viewers, and thank you for these very pertinent questions. It has been worrying us as it is worrying everybody Well, you quickly got it when you said the deputy speaker conveyed our annoyance when the service chief refused to honor our invitation so that we can actually get to the root of it. But I am opportune to be a member of the Defense Committee, and we have been carrying out our oversight functions. Even to us, we were equally disappointed with despite all the apparatus, the parameters that we put in place, and we expect them to act, yet the results are not seen as desired. Now, quickly to answer, though it is not good to discuss some of these our problems, on air or in public, because as I'm talking to you now, probably the bandit or the terrorists, as you can call it, are also listening to us. But to put the record straight, it is just that something is wrong with this part of the security architecture, especially our armed forces, because they are the ones that have been saddled. We have this problem, but what we could deduce is that the much collaboration by individuals that are supposed to partake in the information issuing. So those gathering the information, either they are getting the wrong information or the people are supplying the wrong information. So in essence, there has been a very big collaboration between the local communities.
Thank you.
That to the extent that we are not getting it right, we are not getting the correct information. So this has been the problem.
Honorable, that you put this at the desk of intelligence, sometimes compromised intelligence. But then you would hear that that is also part of the warfare itself. There's the warfare you fight on the scale of intelligence, counterintelligence, and all of that. But also speaking to, when you said there are protocols in place, you talked about providing the apparatus. I imagine you're talking weapons, platforms, and all of that. Are you saying that we're okay on that part in terms of, equipping our soldiers with what they need to essentially, go after these bandits? Are we okay on that part as well?
Definitely, in terms of weaponry, like you just said, the apparatus, I can say we are relatively okay, even 70, 80%. Let me give you the instance of the attack on that Monday evening. You can see it takes them, the time of response is just within 10, 15 minutes, and all the Air Force, everything, they were deployed at the scene, and they were able to overcome the bandit. For that, I think we don't have problem. But what prior to, look at the time the bandit came on motorbike with some even private buses like these Sharon buses to come so that they will use it to evacuate. You think we can have some apparatus to detect that earlier than that? So that when they were seen, look at the time they took to implant the explosive on the railway. Nobody detected them. They are moving en masse. That's left some question. We are more or less of an attacking, repelling, or repulsive kind of a situation, rather than we should be preventive. So if they have been preempted, they have been sighted, planning all this, you saw some unusual movement on the rail line, you see all those movement, at least the locals, they must have passed through people that can be able to report. Apart from the locals, we should have some devices to be on surveillance, either camera, drones, whatever, to have been monitoring the rail line so that we can monitor activities. I had Senator Shehu Sani, a former senator, who says that he witnessed about 3 or 4 times that these rail trucks run on cows. Why, for goodness sake, will you allow cows to be around that line? Can't you detect them despite the protective that you put along the rail line? So what I'm trying to say in essence, that even in terms of equipment, apparatus, detective in terms of surveillance are not yet equipped, or they are not yet deployed, or they are not being deployed.
That's a vexed issue as well. A number of people have spoken to that. Even yesterday, we had some guests who were talking about intelligence or a lack of it being a major reason for, this occurrence that we have on our hands. But then there are those who also speak to something that you raised earlier, which is the place of community engagement. It would seem like there is a disconnect between the government or the administration or the people running the railway service and the communities through which this service passes through. What kind of engagement should be happening so that that connection that you're talking about is always there and we never lack the information we need to prevent such occurrences?
Now, two things. Number one, but all of them translate into patriotism. How sincere am I, or how sincere are the communities that they want to defend the nation, defending themselves, defending their community, defending their villages, then at the same time defending the nation. And on the other side, the security personnel, how also patriotic are they that they wouldn't sell information or they will not refuse to act for money? Let me tell you, from our investigations, those bandits, we will look at them as locals. We will look at them as, I mean, when I say local, I mean local in the local sense. But I'm telling you, they have intelligence. They have people that are supplying them intelligent, though they are also bandits among them. So they are very, very good to take advantage of the situation, both from the personnel and from the community. They gave a heavy money to community, taking advantage of our poverty line and the unpatriotic nature. Even if I am not wealthy, I am poor, if that patriotism is there, then at least I should be able to do the needful and rightly in that manner. So they took advantage of this slack, either due to government and the personnel. But suffice to say that the security personnel inside, I will now commend our service team, both in the police, the army, those who are engaged in prosecuting this war against terrorism. They are trying their best, mopping out the mob, I mean the mall among themselves, and they are punishing them. That we know, and we don't want to let the tactics there. But suffice to say that they are doing that. But from the community, a lot of them you will see, why will I allow, and you saw money. So the bandit using the community, giving them money. So I believe more has to be done with the, community leaders, community individuals. And let me tell you, if a proper check will be done with the communities around these areas, by now, even the security know where the bandits are hiding. They are on Nigerian shore, and there is no way using GPS, anything, they cannot locate them. We have advocated for the terrorists that they should be declared as terrorists, this bandit, so that you can even engage them. By the law in place means that you can identify their target, go there and finish them. Why can't you do that?
Let's get the benefit.
Because
pardon me, Honorable. Let's try to get the benefit of the experience of retired Commissioner of Police in Kaduna State, Mr. Agiole Abe, who joins us also this morning via phone. Mr. Abe, thank you for hanging on. I mean, this is an area you know quite well, and across that rail track, there are dozens and dozens of communities, left and right that just, crisscross that rail track. And there's been a lot of conversation around intelligence gathering, how these bandits may be hiding in these communities. Some have mentioned Regina and other communities. Some would also tell you that the primary role of the police is to gather intelligence, the intelligence needed, and disseminate it across board. What are we missing here, really? Because it seems we know the challenge, but implementing and winning this war has been a big challenge. So what are we missing?
Hello?
Hear me?
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello? Thank you so much for having me, and the incident is quite unfortunate, and my condolences to the families of those that lost their lives, and pray that those that are receiving treatment in the hospital recover soon. This issue of security is reoccurring. I listened to the Honorable, and what I want to say here is we appear to know the problems from the police level to the community level to the policymakers. We know the problem. It has not been analyzed perfectly. But the question is, what are we doing to get it right? Yes, there are lots that can be done. The security services are doing so much now, but the question is, are we actually responding appropriately to the current wave of crime? I think I view it differently. As the character of crimes in the society changes, so to security architecture respond efficiently to that particular type of crime. The train incident, for instance, when we pick police officers who are not trained to respond to particular crime, we are not getting good results at all. You can't do the wrong thing consistently and think you're going to get it right. What are the kind of things we do to prevent future occurrence of this kind of incidents? Please, for God's sake, we train officers. We train officers for this particular crime, special officers that can respond. That in case of an attack on this place, what do they do? First of all, what are their own personal safety instincts they have to do in order to kind of counter these attacks? You don't just take people because they have guns because to enter the train and tell them, look, protect this train. Other people are not going to get results. If they succeed, that is maybe, but they cannot succeed on environment that they are not trained for. I think in that aspect, we must prefer to respond efficiently with the type of crimes being committed. Secondly, what are even the current police officers or military officers that are on this assignment, what kind of military gear or operational gear do they have?
Oh, Mr. Abe, are you still there? We seem to have lost your connection. But can you still hear me?
I do not believe we are doing enough to bridge a gap between us and the communities. The Honorable said the bandits or who they have overbearing effects on this.
Well, it looks like one of those mornings where we have a sketchy phone connection. But we'll try to reconnect with Mr. Agule Abe, retired police commissioner, Kaduna State. But he made some points, talked about training, having the right men and the right place. He also talked about the kind of equipment. And I recall the Honorable was saying, well, maybe we're 80%, but in terms of deployment or procurement, there are a lot of challenges there. Okay, so let's go back to Honorable while we try to reconnect with Mr. Agule Abe. And I'd like to first understand that invitation by the House of Reps to the service chiefs. And there are different sides to this. The Deputy Speaker was quite miffed, saying that they didn't quite show up. Sent representative, though, but they didn't quite show up. But in terms of the operational implication of that invitation. Don't forget, this is still an ongoing mission to rescue the victims and get those unaccounted for. What value was that invitation going to bring to bear in getting at least the best possible outcome in this situation?
Well, the benefits really abound and they're very clear. When the high echelon, the leaders, the security chiefs come to us, we will now discuss either in camera to know their problem now, since we are now on a mission, and that's rescue mission. What are their handicaps? What are the impediments? Does this impediment require some legislative intervention that we can do it ex parte? Such you cannot do with lower subordinate. So we want to hear from them. They were at the crime scene. They have seen the president. They have briefed the president. It's not all every information that they will leak that everybody within the hierarchy of the command must know. So we want to hear firsthand from them. When we do probably the public something hearing, then we can close, and then they give us those sensitive information, and we will see how to act, so that by the time they appear, it will enable us to do the Chinese talk, talk behind scene, get solutions, because we are after solution now. And up to now, we did not even receive any information from the bandit. What was the motive of their attack? Well, we know first to tell us that we are so porous that they can invade and at any time. They first attack the airport to show how they can and how our facilities are being vulnerable. Then now the railways, about 2 attacks, bombing. So it's sending signals. They have not packed captives. They have not even reached out either for ransom, which probably eventually it may not. Now the situation on ground is when they appear, we will hear from them firsthand, and there are some other things that the legislative arm can come. Do we need to talk to the president? Do we need to talk to them? Do we need to augment? Do we need to give them an express kind of something to acquire an emergency weapon? Do they need to hire war contractors? Something like that. We need to know, because we have to safeguard the rail line, the airport, not even the road. Even the road has to be. So lack of appearing, lack of honoring, really, put us at a kind of a level that we can't even, we lack vocabulary to even quantify it, just to say we are disappointed.
Well, Honorable, one of the things that I also heard Mr. Aguilar mention earlier, which you also tried to respond to, is that community engagement. If you heard him clearly, he said, we don't seem to have breached that gap of community engagement. And the question that came to my mind for you, Honorable, is these communities have representatives in the houses of assembly, in the House of Assembly in their states, and in the National Assembly, where you also chair the Defense Committee. Is there a role that you think that their representation of their people can play in bridging that community engagement gap? They represent the people in the National Assembly.
Definitely. In fact, just yesterday, I don't want to tell to tell the public our strategy, but I think we have to deposit here. Just yesterday at the Defense Committee, we sat and mapped out that we are going to identify the communities between Niger, Kaduna, Katsina, and then Zamfara, then come to this, okay, Berlingwari is still Kaduna, so that we will now call their representative, then give them some tips. We have some security expert consultant that we are engaging outside the house, and those that are either past or retired personnel, we have engaged them so that we will now use this representative to engage. In different committees, we use it for TCN, this this transition company, when we are having problem with wayleave, we engage the rest of the community, we do some talks, and because you see some shrine, you come, you do survey, there's no shrine, then tomorrow when you come back to contractors deflator site, there's a mobile shrine. So I don't want to go into that, it's also another cup of tea, but we use these tactics and it works. So presently, as from yesterday, we are working out a model of this engaging. Definitely, we know that this representative will play a bigger role. We want to go even higher. With the representative, we now identify community leaders so that we reach out to them, so that we can sensitize. And I don't want to say, don't be surprised if people that are really, I don't want to say non-compliant, but if they refuse, we have a non-cooperation from a community, I'm telling you, we are determined to see that even all the communities are wiped out. Zaki BM is an example. So we have identified this, but like I told you, some of these strategies, we don't want to say it on air, but much is being done, just like the retired commissioner have said. What is to be done is like every day we are waking up with different scenarios. There are so many factors contributing to that. Poverty is there, lack of employment is there. But to me, when you are patriotic, then I think the job will be easy. But let me tell you,
Honorable,
something is being done and is being done very fast.
Please hang on a minute. We have Mr. Aguilar back on the phone joining us this morning. Well, Mr. Abe, you were making a point about equipping the men in terms of response. So that was when we lost you. So I'd like you to land on that point before I take you up on some other issues.
You're breaking. Please, can you come again, just briefly?
Okay, I said you were making a point about equipping the men to respond to issues like this just before you were cut off. So please go ahead.
Yes, like I was saying. Yes, like I was saying. Let me make a little comment on. Honestly, I listened to the Honorable very well, and some of these points he raised regarding community efforts and the government. This issue has, if we go back to records, all these things have not previously been done. It's not yielding results. We've already had contact with communities. We already made contact for them to reach out to these bandits. It's reversing. It's not working. For God's sake, first of all, can this security apparatus effectively manage this crisis? Yes.
The challenge is you're listening to yourself from maybe your television set or on YouTube. So there might be that confusion. So you might want to turn that down so it doesn't clash with your trail of thoughts.
Yes, like I was saying, is there anything we can do to prevent this occurrence of this incident? Yes. And first of all, let's examine, let's x-ray, particular my organization that I came out from. The current IT, fine, he's doing perfectly well. He came in at a time things have virtually gone wrong. He came in at a time, honestly, you need a serious intervention. The police morale is quite low, not just the financial things that come to the policemen, they say, but what they operate with is certainly the low standard in a country of this at this particular century. We are still operating back to colonial days. That is exactly how our mentality has not changed because we have not acquired different concepts to policing in this present era. And it's affecting us. If we are responding, I saw the officers and men that responded. What kind of gear are they carrying? In case of an emergency within the scene of crime, how do they intend to respond? These are areas we should see, particularly for now. Honestly, the issue of attack on this train, I think this is the second time within a space of time. By now, we should be drawing up an architecture to prevent future occurrence. Yes, we cannot occupy the whole space, but when the crime occurs, we can respond. And what do? Is the same men that are inside, because we cannot rule out the issue of each time we keep making statements about police officers, possibly betray some of this operational plan. This thing has been occurring for too long. It shouldn't be our problem any longer. Are the generality of the police force ready to work? Yes.
I'll need to come in now. Yes, we're trying to make the best of the call quality we're getting from Mr. Abe's connection, just so we can get the benefit of his experience. But now we need to go to a break. But when we return, there are a lot of issues to consider, especially the latest plan moving forward for that access, to secure the access. How much will this bring to bear? And we'll hear from the Minister of Transport as well. So please don't go away. Stay with us. Welcome back, Mr. Abe. So it looks like the direction is to employ locals to secure that portion, especially the black spots, the areas where it's hard, or the blind spots, as it were, where it's hard to really see what's going on there. So in terms of getting locals, don't forget there's still the role of the police to play in this. What do you make of this move going forward? Do you think that this will quell the agitations and reduce the attacks we're seeing on that axis?
Yes, I think we have a lot to be done, especially between security and community partnership. First of all, we must be able to build this trust between us and the community. Yes, the bandits live within these communities. Most of these people in the community benefit from the spoils of this banditry, and it's difficult to sway their decisions to think towards providing us relevant information. But we can go ahead of that and also embed into this community informants, not necessarily they must indigents of that community. The issue of relating with community leaders have always consistently been done. When I was Commissioner of Police in Kaduna State, we had an expanded meeting between us and these communities and their traditional rulers. And at the end, you seem to be going back all over again. So I think we must lay our emphasis more on our reaction as security officers than rely on this community. We can get information, like he said, the police officers know where the bandit is, and sometimes that kind of statement is not correct because it is very, very difficult because officers too are in danger with this type of crime. So I think we should lay emphasis more on provision of appropriate equipment for managing of this crime and area surveillance consistently of this railway tracks. And so also under government policy development, we should look at the time factor in the movement of this train. Something should be done so that
pardon me, we'll talk about that time angle. It's a big one, really. But we want to expand this conversation further. There's a security angle, trying to rescue those unaccounted for or kidnapped. But there's also the humanitarian angle, trying to care for those injured. We're joined on the program as well by Mr. Mohammed Mukadas, who's Executive Secretary, Kaduna State Emergency Management Agency. He joins us via Zoom this morning. Well, Mr. Mukadas, I know there's a lot going on in the humanitarian and medical angle, but just bring us up to speed. What do you have on your hands right now?
Good morning. We arrived at the scene at about 1 a.m. on the 29th of March. Our team was received by the military led by General Opene, who had already secured the location and commenced evacuation of the affected victims. Although on arrival, I asked the general of the number of evacuees. He didn't have an idea. And also, he didn't say to what location they were moving the evacuees and what the instruction was, as regarding, the need to assemble, to be documented for post-traumatic examination on arrival in Kaduna. Later on, we got to know that on arrival, the victims just dispersed. So my team and I moved into the scene and evacuated 7 corpses that were lying fallow in the hard-to-reach ditch, and transported them alongside a few victims that were badly wounded, and one of them that escaped the kidnappers. So 7 dead bodies were moved, were evacuated, from the scene to the 44 hospital. In all, we have had 26 victims with different degrees of injuries. 7 dead, as I said, 1 death in transit, and of course, as you know, the number of abducted victims is still unknown, to us.
So, there was a
Emergency Management Agency immediately set up a crisis center and provided a number with which families were requested to make inquiries and provide relevant information on passengers that traveled on the train. And I can tell you that as at yesterday evening, we had received about 168 calls from Nigerians, all seeking to know the whereabouts of their relatives.
And I think it will be quite important to know just how that is going as well, those unaccounted for. Yes, you said, the government said that the manifest was released to them. 398 passengers bought tickets for the trip. 362 were validated as having boarded the train through the entry point. You said you have received 168 calls. I don't know if that's related to 168 passengers, but how many people are unaccounted for as we speak right now?
We are yet to determine that. However, from the calls being received and the cross-checking between the calls, the names mentioned by relatives and the validated names as per the manifest provided by the Nigerian Railway Corporation, unfortunately, we were only able to cross-match 9 names out of all of the calls. And of course, I can say that we have seen that some of there are multiplicities of calls referring to same passengers or victims. So we are in the process of, fetching out all of those multiplicities and be able to mention the particular number that we suspect that could have been abducted by the thugs.
On the flip side is how many people are accounted for? How many people do we know are safe or receiving treatment or sadly have died?
As I mentioned earlier, 8 persons have died. As at yesterday, we had only 8 people still being admitted, at both the 2 hospitals, in Kaduna. Others have been treated and discharged. We cannot mention or we cannot say how many people have been abducted. At the moment, we're in the process of ascertaining that, through the crisis center that we have established.
Well, Mr. Mukadas, again, I know it's, just as my colleague has said, it's a lot of work on your hands, and I know that there are reports that a good number of people have been discharged, to go to their homes. I don't know if there is any plan or thought along the line of post-traumatic care for some of these people, because they are most certainly charred for life unless such an intervention is provided. Is there any such thinking?
Yes, the State Emergency Management Agency is working closely with the Ministry of Health. We have commenced, getting in touch with passengers whose names and numbers, appeared on the validated manifest. The Ministry of Health is getting in touch with them and, putting it forward, for the passengers who might require such services. As I did mention earlier on, for those passengers who were taken to the hospital, most of them have been treated and allowed to leave, except for 8 as of yesterday.
Well,
7.
Okay.
Yeah, proceed.
You've highlighted, or at least referenced, some gaps in the data that we have on our hands now in order to be able to deal with the issues as we should. So in terms of those gaps, what are the areas that you think we need to close so that we can be a little more accurate in getting this data and be able to deal with the issues and serve the people the way we really want to serve them? Okay. Well, sincere apologies. I'm pretty sure that we'll still be able to get him back. Okay, well, can you hear me now, Mr. Makadas? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm pretty sure that we'll get him back. Well, so, Mr. Agiole, the intervention, you would, I don't know, the police does have a lot of work to do when it comes to community engagement. There are those who also point, or at least hint at the fact that in every local government in this country, there are DSS officials who are supposed to provide intelligence that will forestall such an occurrence as this. Do you see gaps in that area that we should have been able to block? If you do, what are those gaps and how do we block them? Mr. Agiole, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you just, you breaking, can you come just in the brief of what you said? I think I got certain parts of it and I didn't receive it exactly what.
Yeah, I just wanted you to speak a little further on the community engagement, intelligence gathering bit that you spoke to earlier. There are DSS officials, we have been told, in every local government in this country. And if this happened and we couldn't get ahead of it, it indicates some gaps, don't you think? What are these gaps and how do we bridge it?
Yes, I will come from the perspective of the privilege I had to be CP Kaduna State. There's a lot of gaps, not just between us or the DSS and the rest. There's an existing gap that until it is resolved, we keep having this break in communication between all the sister agencies. Let me give you an example. When an information is received by DSS, the director of the state director of the DSS in Kaduna does not owe me any responsibility to explain to me. He processes this information to his bosses in Abuja, who filters it, and which they want me to know is that they communicate to me as a commissioner of police Kaduna State. So we find out that within this period that information are traveling, are transiting between Kaduna and Abuja, a lot of things must have gone wrong that takes such information. So we must work towards not just policy synergy, but active synergy between sister agencies. And I will insist that for now, it is not robust at all. You know, the period that left, and now I don't think much has been done to create this relationship.
You know,
sometimes
Mr. Abe, pardon me, I just wanted to quickly bring this point because of time. Now, a lot of people have also said that there must have been some sort of sabotage, an inside job in, you know, getting this attack to be successful, sadly, the way it was. And in fact, there were reports that When that attack was happening, there were passengers in the coaches that were pointing some other passengers out to the bandits, so they know who is influential, who is not, who they should take, who they should not take. And there would always be questions about how to ensure that those who get on board that train are either traceable or are at least people who are not crime related, as it were. So is there a way to really ensure that we know, or we're able to trace everyone who gets on our train?
Very easy. Yes, we can do it for the point of entry. These are all security procedures. Why would we walk straight into the train after buying tickets? No, we are not confronted with a new trend of crime. Let's install technologies at these train stations. When you're coming to buy train, you present your ID, they take the information in your ID and your photographs, and you go into the train. But this issue of people coming into the train, sometimes without getting tickets, without buying, or jump into the train at various stations to stop. We are not really conscious of security, and when it happens, we begin to get to find out what is the cause. We all know the cause. We know the cause of police ineffectiveness. This thing has been consistently on. We are facing. They have done a lot. So we are just going around and not solving the problem. Please, there are a lot we can do outside security to prevent this kind of people infiltrating into the train. We should check the activities of those getting into the train. We should have technologies that can capture people going into the train. It's not too much to feed millions of people daily. There are technologies. And these technologies are important within a short space of time.
Okay.
It is not the policy to adopt or create some of these policies. We don't create policies, we implement actionable policies.
You say we are not really taking security seriously, at least. That's the one thing I think I can draw from what you've said, and coming from a retired commissioner of police, that is a serious issue. Honorable, there are those who, well, we had a conversation with some gentlemen yesterday, security experts, who said that perhaps we need a central intelligence clearinghouse where, you know, someone somewhere from all of the security agencies of government in this country will be able to take the information and dispatch it immediately for action. Is that something you think, you know, is useful for us, that maybe perhaps legislation will be able to take action on, a central intelligence clearinghouse? Do you think it's something feasible?
Very, very feasible, and the time is not any other than now. Like I told you, there are so many things within this week that we at the Legislative Chamber, specifically the House of Representatives, commenced the week with. And these are some of the things that we are trying, just like the issue, the synergy between the DSS and the police, and then, you know, getting information. That information have to emanate from a community in Kaduna, go to the DSS headquarters in Kaduna, from the local to the local government first, local government to the DSS or headquarters in Kaduna. Then it has to come to Abuja before it will now be disseminated for the Commissioner of Police in Kaduna to use it. So this kind of centralized intelligence gathering unit, or you call it a centralized intelligence processing unit, that automatically information will be dished out, is better. And even to bring it segregated down to the state, because something is happening in a region now, in Kaduna, in a particular local government, and then it has to go to Kaduna. Before you process this information, probably the damage must have been done. So we have set up a committee that will cut across all those involved, and then with a view of reducing response time, or even preventive, to prevent the crime from happening. be it terrorism, be it anything, then if peradventure it occur, then the response time must be to the barest minimum. And again, the equipment, just like you said, you cannot just send an ordinary policeman with just an AK-47 protective things device. He has also protect, survive before he can even prosecute whatever. So all these things are being put in question. Now, this brings me also that we are talking for people to know that some of these lower police people that are the foot soldiers being deployed to the field are being even complained of even common allowances, to the extent that you had a police say, even police kid, he uses personal money to kit himself. So, I mean, and despite the money we have been budgeting, throwing into that arena, that also is an issue that if the Commissioner of Police says we are not yet prepared to fight this thing at the war, I think he cannot be very far away from the truth. So the issue is the money being there, even their common allowances, if you can give it to them, it will boost their morale. It will ginger them well to fight. So many things are being put in place. So that issue of the Central Intelligence Processing Unit is an issue that we are looking how to go about it, either by a kind of a fiat legislative action is really being contemplated. And in the near future, when we get all the input, we will put the apparatus in place.
All right, Honorable. Let me, as we wind down on this now, Mr. Mukadas, just to mention that one of the cherry news I got in this whole phase is the fact that there was a statement put out that people should come donate blood, and it was heartwarming to see how much people actually turned up. In fact, one of the front pages of the dailies spoke to that effect this morning. But I would like you to also speak to this issue of a discrepancy in the figures of passengers. So there were reports earlier on that there were over 900 passengers on board. And for a lot of people, that made sense, because if you take a look at the coaches, 40 to 84 people on board, and I counted at least 11 of them. Due to multiplication, it might come around to that figure. But when the manifest came out, we saw that there were 398 people that bought the ticket. So I'd like to know, have you been able to find closure to that discrepancy in terms of the number of passengers on board? That's for Mr. Mukadas. Please unmute your microphone.
Yes, there are a lot of fake information, going around on the, on the social media. However, the official data that we have received from the Nigerian Railway Corporation and, the official information received from the NRC and that has been validated is 390 and 360. And as I did mention earlier on, we have received calls from Nigerians. We've received up to 168 calls from people, calling to know the whereabouts of their, their family members. And we have been able to cross-match only 9 of the names provided by the callers with what is validated on the manifest. So we are still in the process of trying to determine, who is missing from the data that we have.
All right, Mr. Mohammed Mukadas, the Executive Secretary of Kaduna State Emergency Management Agency, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the very best. We've also spoken with Mr. Agiole Abe, who's a retired Commissioner of Police, Kaduna State, and Pioneer Commandant, Mobile Police Training College, Ilarogun, in Osun State. Thank you so much, as well as Honorable Yunusa Abubakar, Member, House of Representatives Committee on Defense. Thank you so much, Honorable, for your time on the program.